the Joker put on another show. 25, 17, and 12 for yet another triple-double for the reigning back-to-back MVP. The MVP race has come down to Jokic and Embiid. Listen to these quotes from Embiid to The Athletic. People have been talking about who has the most pressure to win. People want to mention me. I'm not at the top of that list. So why is there pressure on me to do something when there are guys that have won 2 MVPs, a bunch of MVPs, haven't done anything either? All right, let's bring in NBA champ. That's a dude who's won. Richard Jefferson. I like the fact, RJ, that Embiid's mind is on the right thing. He's talking about, forget about the MVP for a second. What about winning a championship, right? You know, that's all fine.
Well, I think it's it's in the context of pressure. He's looking at this as like, yeah, I have as much pressure as most other stars. But if you start breaking it down, we remember Giannis when he won his 2 MVPs and how he didn't win that third one. And you start to look at him as like, is Giannis going to be able to do it? I think Jokic is under the same amount of pressure as Giannis is. There's no more quote unquote excuses. And they were real excuses. His teammates were hurt the entire time. They were banged up and he carried them. But it's like, you have a healthy squad now. Your team should be a championship level team. And don't forget, the last 3-time MVP we had was Larry Bird, who won, I think, 62, 65, 67 wins, went to 3 finals, and won 2 championships. So if there's pressure, it's on the guy that potentially has 2 MVPs that can potentially getting the third. There's no pressure on Giannis. He's already won a championship. Yeah,
Jokic for sure has pressure because Larry Bird was universally basically considered the best player in the game then. Jokic floats in and out of the people's top 5, right? Giannis, because he got that chip, is now firmly entrenched in most people's lists as number 1. I want to see this odds list again. Look at this, RJ. Now, on the one hand, you could say, well, it's a calf. We want Embiid healthy heading into the playoffs and all that. On the other hand, look at these odds. Look what happened. On the other hand, so on March 20, Jokic was a pretty big favorite to win MVP. Tim Bontemps' straw poll comes out. Everyone's outraged that Jokic is running away with it, right? Embiid is on fire. He flips it. He's a big favorite on Monday. And then all of a sudden, you know, Kendrick Perkins and others look at Embiid not playing a mile high, right, in altitude as a duck of the rematch. And now it's even odds between those guys. And RJ, I get it. He has the calf. He's played 3 games in 4 nights. If he plays last night, you got to get ready for the playoffs. On the other, and also you're at altitude. On the other hand, he got Jokic head-to-head the first time, right? Like this matchup people were looking forward to, and it's seen as a duck, and the odds reflect it. What do you think?
I don't think it's it's a duck from the eyes of we all wanted it. But if he goes out to the court against 1, 2, 3, 4 best player in the world in Jokic after his dominance performance in Philly. But you're right. Jokic needs a chance to get his get back. And that's what we miss is can Jokic, because we both know this. If Embiid would have gone out and put out another 40-point, 15-rebound game and won the game in spectacular fashion, to me, the MVP race would have been over. The MVP race would have been over, and that's why people were feeling like it's a duck. And now we're back in trying to figure out who is what, who's the best, look at the numbers. It could have been solidified that night, and it wasn't for either player, for Jokic or Embiid.
It's like a guy at the end of the season is going to win the batting title, the team sits him, right? But then the guy that they thought he was way ahead of goes out and goes 5 for 5, and all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, who's going to win the batting title? All right. This just incredible. 24 years ago today, Shaq and Chris Dudley gave us this incredible moment. Shaq dunks Shaq did this to David Robinson, this to everybody, right? Shoves Dudley to the ground, and then Dudley throws the ball at Shaq. What do you think, RJ?
I don't know. When people talk about dominance and fear and all this other stuff, we've seen Shaq, and then it was like Wilt Chamberlain. That was all we can remember from a player physically, mentally, emotionally just dominant out on the basketball court. That's a man that was just different, and we all were witnessing it in real time. Was that a little extra? Was it a technical? Yes, but I love Chris Dudley's throw. That was amazing. Hit him in his back. Shaq just keeps moving like nothing happened.
3 most unstoppable physical phenomenon ever in the NBA were Wilt, Shaq, and I think LeBron. Those are the three guys that jump out to me where it's like, what are you going to do with this guy? There's nothing you could do with this guy. Shaq was unbelievable.
There's nothing that you can do. That's why, again, I was working elsewhere when all these fear conversations, as dumb as they are, right? Like they were just, it was absurd. And I'm glad that we have kind of like settled that down and we're now back to basketball.
14 of 18 shots and put up 40 in the Knicks win over the Rockets. Quickly's been good since he's been in the league. He's just a good player. And he's the kind of player the Knicks have specialized in recent years. Good championship quality rotation pieces. But you know what? You get enough of those guys with a good enough culture, they're missing that one player to put them over the top. Good, but Julius Randle's very good and obviously Brunson. But because of guys like this, they might be able to land that big fish. Check out this crazy assist from Luka last night. Pinned in the corner, he throws a laser cross court under the hoop to set up a wide open three. You know what this? This is a LeBron James pass. Like, people, when you think about passing, you think about Magic Johnson and Jason Kidd, some of the great passers. But LeBron will do, at his size, will throw those pinpoint laser beams. That's the kind of pass it reminded me of. Still time to right the ship in Dallas, but they've just won 8 of 21 games since picking up Kyrie Irving. The Mavs have won 7 of 16 games with the 8-time All-Star in the lineup. Dallas is ranked in the bottom third in scoring defense over that span. NBA champ Richard Jefferson back with me. As Jay Will points out on KJM in the morning, RJ, a lot of people are looking at Kyrie, but shouldn't we also be looking at Mark Cuban, it's a warm weather, no state income tax, glamour market, right? Once upon a time, they had Dirk Nowitzki. They let Steve Nash walk out the door for nothing. Just they didn't want to pay him, right? At his age, his size, the whole thing. Mark Cuban let him walk. All right, so they have the one championship, but that's it. They have Luka, this signature. They let Brunson just walk for the money, just like Nash once upon a time. Look what's going on in New York now. Then they have to chase their loss and send away depth in order to get Kyrie back. Shouldn't we be looking at Mark Cuban here?
Well, shortly after they let go of Steve Nash, they won 67 games. They won, I believe, 60 games. They did have an upset, and a couple of poor performances, but they also won a championship. So we can't talk about the bad of like letting Steve Nash go. Well, what were the subsequent teams doing after that Steve Nash? They ultimately won a championship, won 60 games multiple times. So, like, when I look at Mark Cuban, yes, there are things that he could do better. There's a lot of things that every president, every owner, every coach can do better. So I'm not going to blame it just on Mark Cuban. I will say this, though. I think their roster was constructed in a manner that they did the best that they could, and so they put themselves in a position that, hey, we got to restructure it. People don't understand. Some of these moves, they were able now, if they don't sign Kyrie, they have cap space, they have flexibility, they have things to now, hey, we can retool this team in a different way. So I think in any situation where things are not going the way they're supposed to, you have to kind of balance out that blame pie, and I think everyone should get a piece of the pie. It doesn't matter if it's J. Kidd, doesn't matter if it's Nico, doesn't matter if it's Mark Cuban, everyone, including the players, everyone gets a piece of that pie.
Mark Cuban usually will admit his mistakes. You know what, Mark? You come on the show. Come on this just in because I want to talk to him about this. Thank you, RJ. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.